Well, I think a lot of you that watch this vlog don't know Reno, but you might know Lake Tahoe. That's where I am right now, as you can see. And Tahoe in the winter is always interesting. And that is why I'm here today, doing a story for Colo 8, talking to people about having to dig out of all this snow, which there is tons up here. I'm not exactly sure how many feet they got, but they got a lot. And there's packs of it on the sides of the road that are taller than me, and I'm just under 6'4". So it is a sight to see, that's for sure. It's always a challenge, though, having to do these stories and interview random people. There's one well-known poker pro in Reno that lives at Tahoe. He could have helped me out, and he knows who he is. He could have helped me out and been interviewed for this. Camera shy, he says. So, still trying to track down some people for that story. But meanwhile, take a look around Tahoe right now with some video that I shot and just see what it's like in the winter for those of you who have never been out here. It is definitely something to see. All right, it is a Friday here at the Peppermill. Kind of a stagnant start to the 3-5 game. Not a full game, not a great game, but did get into one particularly interesting spot. And that came when the game was short-handed, 6-handed, and we get one limp under the gun +1. The small blind completes, and I'm in the big blind with a 6-7 offsuit, and I check. The flop comes 6-7-4 with 2 hearts. Small blind checks. I bet 20. With the top 2 here, an obvious bet. The limper folds and the small blind calls. The turn comes an offsuit jack. And now the small blind, who's not really an OMC by the way he plays, but he acts like an OMC. He now leads out into me for 35, and I thought that was particularly interesting because, first of all, if he had flopped a set here or flopped the straight here, I think that he would try to check raise, not just lead out. So I made him for fairly weak. I thought this was actually a fairly weak blocker bet, figuring he had a couple of hearts in his hand. So I raise him to 100. Now he only has about 250, so if he calls this 100, he's only going to have 150 behind. But I didn't want to risk blowing him off some of these draws that he might try to draw out on me with. So I make it 100, and I thought he would probably ship all in a decent amount of the time here. Instead, he just calls. So we're heads up to a river, which comes an offsuit king, and now he checks. And this is a spot where I thought about it for a while, and as you know, I am a very thin value better, and this is a hand worth value betting, but against this particular opponent, he's usually pretty tight, doesn't give me much action. So I think the only way he's paying off a river bet here is if he has King X of hearts. Exactly King X of hearts. But he still, in some weird way, could be capable of slow playing here. I also really want to see what he has, because I play so many hands against him. He always plays a lot of the same hours I do, so I wanted to see his hand. So that's another reason that I decided to chuck it back. And it turned out to be a fine play because he just had 8-9 to have a missed straight draw, so I wouldn't have gotten any action out of him anyway. And I did get to verify the fact that I was right about he was just betting out weak on the turn there, just like I thought he was. But a lot of the times when you see guys bet out, it means they're weak, but it doesn't mean they're going to fold to a raise, which is what we saw there. That is not the Las Vegas Strip. That is just a big-ass TV here at the Peppermill you see behind me up here on the 2nd floor. Nice shot of the Bellagio fountains. Time-lapse right there, it looks like. It's pretty cool. Anyway, checking in here again a little bit later on in the day. The game went from being crappy to being really good. And that's because a maniac showed up to it. And he'd had a couple of drinks, that's for sure, as he always does. If you've watched the vlog titled A $2,500 Bet into a $150 Pot, which is the most viewed vlog I ever did, he was the guy responsible. So most of you in Reno know who I'm talking about, and for those that don't ask. That always applies, by the way. If I ever mention guys in Reno on this vlog, do not ask me who I'm talking about. I will not be telling you. Anyway, So this guy that I'm talking about opens 100 under the gun, and I'm under the gun +1 with pocket queens. I make it 200, wanting to keep him in there with everything because he's been playing everything. You need 2 cards. He makes the call. The flop comes Jack 9 10 rainbow. I have about 1,300 or so in front of me. He has me covered, and he says, I'm all in. He'd been doing this quite a lot before this hand, so there's absolutely no way in the world that folding here is an option. I snap call. I ask if he wants to run it twice. He says no. Turn comes an ace, which I certainly don't like. And the river comes a 4, so I don't make my straight, but it does not matter, as he shows Queen Jack for an overplayed pair and a straight draw. So I win a big one there. Unfortunately, I didn't have video of it, as you can see, but a nice pot nonetheless on a Friday night. A little bit after that, game's still playing wild. The same guy I'm talking about here literally straddled half of his stack. I think I have video of it. I picked up the Queen 4 diamonds when it happened, so didn't get a crack at it there, but shows how wild he was playing and how good the game had become. Shortly after that, I pick up pocket 10s in the cutoff. This same guy we're talking about here is in the straddle in the hijack for 25. I make it 100 with those pocket 10s in the cutoff. Folds back around to him, and he makes the call. He has 500 behind at this point. The flop comes King 8-4 with 2 diamonds, and he simply says, I'm all in. Now this is definitely a spot where I gave it a lot of consideration, because I just don't see him doing this with the king too often, but he had just value bet a full house for about double the pot a couple of hands before that. I had picked off a bluff from his earlier, so I just thought there was a decent chance that he either had some equity here or had a king, and I didn't want to get it in drawing dead with pocket 10s. So I lay it down, and he shows Queen 9 offsuit, so a bad fold there. But check this hand out. I was in the big blind with 7-9 offsuit, and this was a rare occurrence where he didn't raise. He was just in the small blind, and he completed the 5, but there were also 3 of the people in the pot. Flop came 7-4-5, 2 clubs. He checked, and I bet out for the pot. I bet 15. Actually picked up a caller in the cutoff, and the maniac calls me in the small blind. Turns a jack. He checks. I'm still convinced that I'm good here. I bet 40. And the cutoff folds, but the small blind makes the call. River comes a king. Front door flush draw does not get there. And now, small blind bets out for 250. And I just did not see this being believable either. Obviously, the flush misses, but you know, what's he trying to tell me that he has here? I actually literally said out loud, that's a very impressive bet if you just have a pair of kings. And I made the call. And he said, good call. Just showed ace high. So, took down a nice one there. Missed the opportunity to bust him with the pocket 10s, but didn't miss an opportunity there. He shortly this is not going to shock anyone. He did indeed punt off the rest not too long after that.
We've got a punter. Let me tell you something, people. Punters are people too.
All right, just cashed for a $1,295 win here on a Friday night, which is following up a win of a little over 660 yesterday. So amazingly, after that disaster that you saw in the last vlog of losing $1,666 in a day, managed to get that back in the only 2 days off that I have this week. It involves a mad scientist, a stripper, and a monster.